They thought distance would save them. 400 miles of broken roads, shattered bridges, burnt villages, the kind of wasteland that swallows armies whole. German generals measured it on their maps with satisfaction, smiled behind closed doors, did the math with Prussian precision. No force on Earth could sustain an advance across that void, not even the Americans. August 19th, 1944, East Prussia. General Alfred Jodl stands at a window in Hitler's fortress headquarters, Wolf's Lair, where shadows fall long and the forest presses close like a living thing. In his hands, intelligence reports from France, numbers that should mean salvation. Patton's Third Army has torn through German lines like paper, raced 400 miles from the Normandy beaches, left the Seine River behind, left sanity behind, but now the math catches up. An armored division drinks 150,000 gallons of fuel every single day when it's moving. Moving like Patton moves. The Americans are 400 miles from their supply depots. 400 miles. Jodl sets the reports down. His fingers are steady. Patton will stop, he says to the officers gathered around the table. Not because we stop him, because physics stops him. There's certainty in his voice, the kind you only get from watching armies die in Russia when the fuel runs dry, when the ammunition trucks never arrive, when tank columns become monuments to ambition. 72 hours, Jodl continues. Perhaps less. Then we regroup at the Seine. Hold through winter, the other generals nod. They've seen this before. Logistics is a German word after all. What Jodl doesn't know, what none of them know, is that 125 miles west, nearly 6,000 trucks are already rolling. Headlights blazing in the dark. A river of steel and rubber flowing east. No blackout, no caution, no precedent in military history. They call it the Red Ball Express, and it's about to teach the Wehrmacht that American warfare doesn't follow European rules. 72 hours from now, Patton's supposedly immobilized tanks will smash through German positions along the Seine. 1 week from now, Paris falls. 1 month from now, American forces stand at the German border, and every German general who laughed at American logistics will learn a lesson they'll carry to the surrender table. 23,000 truck drivers are about to win the war, most of them black men in a segregated army, driving faster than exhaustion, faster than mechanical failure, faster than the Germans thought possible. This is their story. The story of how trucks became weapons, how supply became strategy, how the sound of engines at midnight became the sound of Germany losing. The Wehrmacht invented blitzkrieg, but they never imagined what would happen when America industrialized warfare itself, when victory didn't come from tactics or courage or even firepower, but from 6,000 trucks that simply refused to stop. The German confidence wasn't arrogance. It was experience written in blood across a continent. They'd pioneered modern war, combined arms, lightning strikes, the kind of operational art that military academies would study for generations. And they understood intimately, brutally, that every advance has a breaking point. That point where your spearhead outruns your supply line, where tanks sit silent because there's no fuel, where soldiers ration their last bullets because the trucks never came. They'd lived it in Russia. Winter of 41, 42. Wehrmacht divisions frozen 200 miles from Moscow. Not stopped by Soviet resistance, stopped by distance itself. German trucks breaking down on primitive roads. Horse-drawn wagons, still 80% of their transport, failing to keep pace. Railway lines that didn't match, leaving supplies stranded 500 miles behind the front. General Hasso von Manteuffel, who commanded the 47th Panzer Corps, wrote in his journal that July. Simple words that carried the weight of hard-won knowledge. The Americans face what we faced in Russia. Mechanical advantage becomes disadvantage. Machines need fuel, parts, constant supply. He paused, calculated, They've advanced 400 miles in 30 days. History teaches what comes next. Paralysis. It wasn't wishful thinking. It was mathematics. German intelligence tracked every detail with obsessive precision. A Sherman tank burned half a gallon of fuel per mile on roads. Worse, cross-country. An infantry division needed 700 tons of supplies daily just to function. An armored division needed 1,000. Patton commanded 12 divisions. Advancing on a 60-mile front, the numbers were irrefutable. 12,000 tons, every single day, transported 400 miles from the beaches. Over roads the Germans had systematically destroyed during their retreat. Every bridge blown, every rail line cut, every depot burned. General Siegfried Westphal, soon to become Field Marshal von Rundstedt's chief of staff, put it in writing on August 20th. Even if the Americans possessed unlimited trucks, which they don't. He was meticulous with his phrasing. German staff officers always were. And perfect roads, which they don't. And no mechanical failures, which is impossible. They still cannot sustain Patton's advance more than 48 hours. He underlined the next sentence twice. Physical laws cannot be violated. Not even by American industry. The confidence was absolute. It was also about to be shattered by a logistics operation so audacious that German military science had no framework to comprehend it. August 25th, 1944. A requisitioned French chateau near Laval. Close enough to the front to hear the distant artillery. Close enough to smell the smoke, Lieutenant. Colonel Gordon Ayres of the Motor Transport Service stands before a room of skeptical officers. The math there, staring at looks impossible. Patton's Third Army is consuming supplies at rates that defy every logistics manual ever written. Traditional methods, rail transport, scheduled convoys, depot-to-depot distribution, have collapsed under the weight of the advance. Too fast, too far. Too much. Ayres clears his throat. Gentlemen, he says, voice steady. We're going to create a one-way highway, from Cherbourg and the beaches straight to the front lines. Silence. Every vehicle runs 20 hours out of 24. No stopping except for fuel and emergencies. Someone shifts in their seat. Uncomfortable. We'll move 12,500 tons daily. Minimum. That's one. Officer starts. Stops. Does the math again? Sir, that's not possible. Ayres nods. I know. We're doing it anyway. Oh, the name came from railroad terminology. Red Ball Freight. Priority shipment that takes precedence over everything else. No delays. No exceptions. No excuses. The Red Ball Express. The specifications they're proposing violate every principle of German military doctrine. Two's parallel highways. One-way traffic only. Loaded trucks going forward. Empty trucks returning. 24-hour operations with headlights blazing. Complete abandonment of blackout discipline. No stop policy except for fuel and mechanical failure. 5-minute intervals between convoys. 35 miles per hour, average speed. Mobile maintenance every 50 miles. Military police checkpoints removing any vehicle slower than 25. Colonel Charles Thrasher, commanding the advanced section, studies the numbers with the expression of a man who's about to jump without a parachute. We need 140 truck companies, nearly 6,000 vehicles, operating at 90% availability. He looks up. That's impossible by every logistics textbook ever written. But 36 hours later, the impossible is rolling. August 26. Dawn breaks cold over France. Drivers from the 3916th Quartermaster Truck Company climb into their vehicles. GMC CCKW 2.5-ton trucks, deuce and a half, the men call them, loaded with 105mm artillery shells. Bound for Patton's guns 300 miles east at Melun, the demographic reality of the Red Ball Express would have stunned Nazi racial theorists. Of the 23,000 drivers who'll eventually operate this route, roughly 75% are black soldiers in a still segregated army. Men who can't eat in white restaurants back home, can't use white facilities, can't vote in much of America. But here, Here, they're keeping the most celebrated general's army in motion. The drivers paint slogans on their trucks within hours. Patton's blood bank. Hitler, here we come. Detroit to Berlin Express. They create their own rules. Faster vehicles pass immediately. Mechanical failures get pushed into ditches. Any truck below 20 miles per hour is a roadblock. By August 28th, German reconnaissance units start reporting something unprecedented. Radio intercept from the 116th Panzer Division, observing the main Red Ball route, continuous vehicle column, headlights visible for 20 kilometers, no spacing, no blackout discipline. There's confusion in the transmission. Estimate 1,000 vehicles per hour. Americans have abandoned all military precaution. This violates everything German doctrine teaches. Headlights at night invite air attack. Continuous columns present perfect artillery targets. No spacing means a single disabled truck could halt an entire convoy. Yet the Americans seem unconcerned. General Edgar Feuchtinger, commanding the 21st Panzer Division, personally observes the Red Ball from concealed positions on August 30th. His report to Army, Group B reflects something new in his voice. Alarm. The enemy operates a supply system beyond our comprehension. He watches through binoculars as another convoy passes, then another, then another. Vehicles pass at 30-second intervals, day and night. Without pause, he lowers the binoculars. They don't hide, don't disperse, don't follow any rules we understand. The words come slower now. It's not military science. It's mass production applied to warfare. What the Germans can't grasp is that American logistics operates on fundamentally different principles. Where German doctrine emphasizes concealment, Americans rely on volume. Where Germans conserve vehicles, Americans assume 20% mechanical failure and plan accordingly. Where Germans follow strict procedure, Americans improvise continuously. The numbers achieved in that first week defy every German calculation of what's logistically possible. August 25th to 31st. 7 days, 89,939 tons of supplies delivered. Daily average, 12,848 tons. Round-trip distance, 686 miles. Vehicle rotations, nearly 6,000 trucks making 1.5 trips daily. Fuel consumed by the operation itself, 300,000 gallons. When German logistics specialists capture these figures from American documents, they dismiss them as propaganda. But the numbers are real, and they're accelerating. By September 5th, the Red Ball has established a rhythm that seems impossible to German officers who still rely on horse-drawn wagons for 80% of their transport. Convoys depart every 5 minutes from the western terminus. Average convoy, 67 vehicles. Load per vehicle, 5 tons standard. 7 tons frequent overload. Time to cover 350 miles one way. 14 hours average. Turnaround at each end, 2 hours. Vehicles in constant motion, 5,000 at any given moment. The operation generates innovations hourly. Problems. German military science considers insurmountable gets solved by tired mechanics on muddy roadsides. Trucks break down, approximately 1,800 daily. Mobile maintenance units perform repairs where they sit. The triage system is brutal and effective. 15 minutes to fix it or push it off the road. Parts cannibalized from vehicles deemed unrepairable. Engines swapped in 45 minutes using mobile cranes. When the designated Red Ball route becomes congested, drivers create alternate paths. They commandeer French buses, borrow German vehicles, paint them olive drab, press them into service. They build bypasses around destroyed bridges, using rubble from bombed buildings as roadbed. The Germans watch this chaos and can't comprehend how it produces order. German logistics doctrine emphasizes careful planning, maintenance schedules, proper procedures. The Americans violate every principle, yet their system accelerates rather than collapses. The most stunning revelation for German observers is American fuel management. The Red Ball Express consumes 300,000 gallons of gasoline daily just for its own operations, more than many German armies receive for all purposes. Yet fuel never runs short. The Americans have created a parallel marvel. Operation Pluto. Pipelines under the ocean, laying fuel pipelines across the English Channel. By September, fuel flows through underwater pipes German intelligence hasn't even detected. Forward fuel dumps every 25 miles along the Red Ball route. Tanker trucks running their own parallel convoy system. No vehicle waits more than 10 minutes for refueling. General Walter Warlimont observes from aerial reconnaissance photographs. The Americans have fuel dumps larger than our entire strategic reserves. He sets the photos down. They burn more gasoline, moving gasoline than we allocate to entire panzer divisions. Quiet now. This isn't war as we understand it. It's industrial overflow. The Red Ball Express doesn't just supply Patton's advance. It multiplies his speed exponentially. German doctrine calculates an armored division can sustain 20 to 30 miles advance daily under optimal conditions. Patton's divisions, supplied by the Red Ball, average 40 to 60 miles daily. For weeks. September 1st, the 4th Armored Division advances 35 miles in morning operations. Halts for resupply at noon. Red Ball trucks are waiting. Fuel and ammunition already unloaded. The division advances another 32 miles in the afternoon. 67 miles in a single day. This shatters German defensive planning, which assumes maximum 30-mile daily advances. General Heinz Guderian, reviewing the reports in East Prussia, initially refused to believe them. No armored force can advance 60 miles daily for a week. He's certain. Mechanical failures alone prevent it. This is propaganda or misidentification, but intercepted American radio traffic confirms it. More disturbing still, the Americans broadcast their positions openly. Without code, supremely confident they can move faster than Germans can react. By September 5th, German intelligence has compiled comprehensive reports on the Red Ball Express. The implications are catastrophic. Every assumption about American military capability requires revision. The observations defy German military science. Americans waste vehicles prodigiously. Abandon damaged trucks rather than repair them. Drivers operate on stimulants for days, violating every principle of personnel management. No camouflage discipline, making the entire system vulnerable to air attack that never comes. Mechanical failure rates of 30% daily, simply overwhelmed by redundancy. Fuel consumption that would bankrupt any European military. Field Marshal Walter Model's response reveals growing desperation. If these reports are accurate, he pauses. We face not a superior army, but a superior civilization. The words hang heavy. They make no effort to hide because they don't fear us. They waste resources because they have infinite resources. He looks at the maps, the arrows showing American advances. We cannot defeat this with military tactics. The Red Ball Express drivers pay a physical price German observers can't see. Drivers operate 72 straight hours, hallucinating from exhaustion and benzodrine. Accidents kill 300 drivers in the operation span. Trucks collide in fog, overturn on damaged roads, burn when overheated engines ignite. Yet morale remains extraordinarily high. These men, mostly black, denied equal rights at home, understand they're making history. They're proving Hitler's racial theories wrong with every mile driven, every ton delivered. Captured German officers provide eloquent testimony to the Red Ball's impact. Oberst Hans von Luck, taken prisoner in September, tells his interrogators something that will haunt him. "We knew we'd lost when we understood your supply system." He's quiet for a moment. "You violate every rule. Waste fuel. Abandon vehicles. Exhaust drivers." Another pause. "Yet succeed through sheer volume. You've industrialized warfare beyond our comprehension." The psychological impact on German forces is devastating. Wehrmacht soldiers can hear American trucks all night, every night. Endless motors, endless supplies. They have 3 rounds per rifle, while Americans bring millions of rounds. The sound itself becomes psychological warfare. The vehicles themselves amaze German engineers. The GMC CC KW 2.5-ton truck. Backbone of the Red Ball Express. Mass production, perfection. General Motors produced over 500,000 of these vehicles by war's end. More trucks than the entire German military possesses of all types combined. The innovations Germans haven't implemented: all-wheel drive as standard, automatic tire inflation systems, waterproofing allowing 30-inch fording, engines running on low-quality fuel without modification, heaters that actually work in winter. More stunning is American maintenance philosophy, where Germans rebuild engines, Americans replace them. Where Germans ration parts, Americans discard entire vehicles for minor problems. Where Germans have master mechanics, Americans have thousands of competent mechanics who can perform 80% of repairs. As the front moves east, the Red Ball adapts with speed that stuns German planning officers accustomed to weeks of preparation. When the original route to Chartres becomes insufficient, Americans create extensions overnight. White Ball Express, Rouen to Paris Green Diamond, Cherbourg to railroad transfer points, Red Lion, Bayeux to Brussels ABC, Antwerp, Brussels, Charleroi. Each new route operational within 48 hours of conception. German staff officers require weeks to plan similar operations. The Americans simply paint new markers. Assign trucks. Start rolling. The predominance of black drivers creates cognitive dissonance for German racial theorists. Nazi ideology declares blacks inferior, incapable of technical tasks, lacking initiative, yet these drivers are performing logistics miracles. German forces can't match. The black soldiers understand the irony perfectly. They know what the Nazis think of them, which makes them drive even harder. Every mile they drive proves Hitler wrong. They're fighting racism with truck keys, defeating Nazi ideology through superior performance. Some German prisoners, forced to load Red Ball trucks as laborers, find their worldview shattered, working alongside black sergeants who calculate weight distributions faster than German engineers, who speak better English than German English instructors, who treat prisoners fairly despite everything Nazi propaganda told them about racial behavior. The Red Ball requires infrastructure Germans deem impossible to create under combat conditions. Engineers build or reinforce 40 bridges, create 15 major fuel depots, establish 26 maintenance stations, construct 8 temporary cities for drivers, all while the operation is running. The bridge at Montereau had been destroyed by German engineers, specifically to halt American logistics. Wehrmacht calculated replacement would require 6 weeks minimum. American engineers build a temporary bridge in 14 hours. Red Ball convoys detour only 8 miles on hastily bulldozed bypass roads. German engineers observe American construction methods with amazement. No planning meetings. No detailed blueprints, just immediate action. They build faster than Germans can destroy. One Red Ball achievement particularly stuns German artillery officers. Ammunition supply rates that exceed their highest theoretical calculations. American artillery units fire without restriction. a luxury no German unit has enjoyed since 1942. During the reduction of Metz fortifications in September, the 12th Corps Artillery fires 100,000 rounds in 24 hours. The Red Ball delivers every round, plus 20% surplus. German artillery defending Metz is rationed to 50 rounds per gun per day. The disparity is overwhelming. American guns fire continuously for hours, while German artillery officers calculate such bombardments require 50 truckloads of ammunition per hour. The Red Ball provides it without pause. The operation consumes vehicles at rates that would have paralyzed any other military. By late September, mechanical attrition reaches staggering proportions. Average vehicle life, 10,000 miles. Normal is 30,000. Daily deadline rate, 30% of all vehicles. Engines replaced, 500 weekly. Tires consumed, 10,000 weekly. Total vehicles destroyed or abandoned, over 5,000. Yet the operation never slows. American production anticipated such losses. Ships arrive weekly at French ports, carrying hundreds of new trucks. Replacement drivers trained in 2 days and thrown into convoys. German calculations show Americans destroying more trucks weekly than the Wehrmacht possesses in France. Yet their transport capacity increases rather than decreases. They've achieved something Germans thought impossible. Logistics faster than consumption. French civilians along the Red Ball route witness American abundance that contradicts years of German occupation scarcity. The psychological impact is immediate and profound. Red Ball drivers, particularly black soldiers, often share their rations with French civilians despite regulations. Every stop, children gather. Drivers give them chocolate. Cigarettes. Soap. The contrast with German occupation is stark. Americans give away casually what Germans rationed strictly. German intelligence reports the propaganda impact. French civilians now believe American victory inevitable. They cite the truck convoys as proof. Resistance activity has increased 400% along Red Ball routes. Early September. The Red Ball faces its greatest challenge. Patton's Third Army has advanced so far that even the Red Ball struggles to maintain supply rates. Round trip now exceeds 700 miles. Drivers collapsing. Vehicles disintegrating. German intelligence detects the strain. General von Manteuffel reports September 8th. American supply lines show signs of collapse. Convoy intervals have increased from 5 to 15 minutes. Vehicle speed has decreased. He underlines his conclusion. This is our opportunity. But American adaptability surprises the Germans again. Within 72 hours, the Red Ball reorganizes, creates intermediate transfer points, cutting individual runs to 350 miles, implements driver rotation systems, establishes forward maintenance bases, doubles the number of assigned vehicles. By September 12th, tonnage delivery has actually increased. The crisis that should have halted Patton only made the system stronger. Supplementing the Red Ball, Americans implement another solution Germans deem impossible. Large-scale aerial supply, C-47. Transport aircraft begin delivering critical supplies directly to forward units, each aircraft carrying 3 tons. September 16th. Wehrmacht observers count 900 transport flights in a single day, delivering 2,700 tons by air. The Luftwaffe at its peak managed 300 tons daily to Stalingrad, considered that a maximum effort. The Americans used transport aircraft like trucks. No fighter escort concerns. No fuel limitations. They assume losses and overwhelm them with numbers. The Wehrmacht can't compete with this industrial arithmetic. The Red Ball operates under command principles that violate German military hierarchy. Junior officers make decisions reserved for generals in the Wehrmacht. Sergeants command operations larger than German colonels manage. This decentralization baffles German observers. American logistics operates without apparent central control. Every lieutenant acts like a general, every sergeant like a colonel. Chaos should result. Instead, they achieve efficiency. The Wehrmacht can't match with rigid hierarchy. By October, advancing railheads begin to reduce Red Bull requirements. The operation, supposed to last 10 days, has continued for 82 days, delivering 412,000 tons of supplies over 122 million ton-miles. German commanders, now fighting on their own borders, reflect on what they witnessed. Field Marshal Model writes in his final report, "We were not defeated by American tanks, or planes primarily." He pauses. "We were defeated by American trucks." The transition to rail transport is itself a marvel. American railroad engineers reconstructed 1,000 miles of destroyed French rail lines while the Red Bull was running. Laid new track faster than Germans destroyed it, often using captured German rail equipment. The final Red Bull statistics defy every German calculation of logistical possibility. 82 days of operation, 412,193 tons delivered, 222 million ton-miles, nearly 6,000 vehicles average, 7,000 peak, 23,000 total drivers employed, 700,000 gallons of fuel consumed daily, 40,000 tons of ammunition delivered to Patton alone, 15 million rations transported, 135,000 tons of medical supplies. Reviewing these figures in captivity, German officers admit they calculated American logistics based on European precedent. They multiplied their best performance by 3 and assumed that was American maximum. They were wrong, by a factor of 10. Beyond tonnage and distance, the Red Bull achieved something more profound. It destroyed German faith in their own military superiority. Wehrmacht officers who dismissed Americans as soft and mechanically dependent watched those same Americans achieve logistics miracles through determination and industrial abundance. German prisoners of war stand silent at prison camp fences, counting passing Red Bull trucks. Some weep. They understand what it means. Not just that Americans can supply their armies, but that they can waste more than Germans can produce. They're watching their worldview collapse, one truck at a time. The Red Bull forces an unexpected racial reckoning within the American military itself. The operation's success depends overwhelmingly on black soldiers who are still segregated, denied equal treatment, barred from combat roles. General Eisenhower, visiting Red Bull operations in September, witnesses the contradiction firsthand. His aide, Captain Harry Butcher, records the moment. The general stood watching colored drivers who'd been at it for 20 hours straight. Eisenhower is quiet for a long moment. These men are winning the war as surely as any infantry. Another pause. We need to reconsider many things. The success creates pressure for integration that contributes to military desegregation 3 years later. Black soldiers proved in France what they always knew. Given the tools and opportunity, they'd match anyone. The Red Bull was their combat, and they won it decisively. German racial theorists struggle to explain the contradiction. SS Racial Science. Publications simply stop mentioning American logistics operations. The evidence is too overwhelming to deny, too damaging to acknowledge. German military engineers study Red Bull operations intensively after the war. The lessons revolutionize logistics, thinking worldwide. Volume overcomes inefficiency. Mechanical redundancy eliminates vulnerability. Decentralized execution enables speed. Standardization multiplies capability. Human endurance has limits, but they're higher than assumed. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German General Staff, writes in 1950, "The Red Bull Express proved logistics determines strategy, not vice versa. Simple truth. Americans understood this. We learned it too late. Among the 23,000 Red Ball drivers, individual stories of heroism emerge that Germans find incomprehensible. Verified accounts from military records. Corporal John L. Houston drove continuously for 48 hours, delivering ammunition to the 2nd Armored Division at Cambrai, falling asleep at the wheel 3 times, but continuing after being revived by other drivers. Private Booker T. Washington's truck caught fire from overheated brakes, carrying medical supplies. Instead of abandoning it as procedure required, he drove the burning vehicle 2 miles to a field hospital. Jumping out as flames reached the cab, the supplies saved wounded soldiers from both armies. These stories, multiplied thousands of times, reveal American military culture to observing Germans. Individual initiative, calculated risk-taking, mission accomplishment over regulatory compliance. Desperately, German forces attempt to create their own version of the Red Ball during late 1944. Operation Grief, during the Battle of the Bulge, includes plans for captured American trucks to create German supply lines. The effort fails immediately. German drivers can't maintain American speeds. German mechanics can't repair American equipment fast enough. German fuel supplies can't sustain the consumption rates. Most fundamentally, Germans can't replicate the American attitude of unlimited resources. Oberst Otto Skorzeny, commanding the operation, reports with brutal honesty. We captured 50 American trucks. Within a week, 30 were deadlined. He understands the difference now. Americans would have replaced them. We tried to repair them. Quiet. That difference explains our defeat. Winter of 44-45 provides the Red Ball's ultimate test. Freezing rain, snow, ice. German doctrine states wheeled logistics becomes impossible below -10 degrees Celsius. Yet the Red Ball continues. Drivers wrap chains on tires, pour alcohol in radiators. Keep rolling. Speeds drop from 35 to 15 miles per hour. But tonnage delivery continues. German observers report ice-covered convoys moving through blizzards that stopped panzer divisions. The Americans created a logistics system that functions regardless of weather, terrain, or enemy action. It isn't elegant or efficient by German standards, but it's unstoppable. May 1945. Captured German logistics officers are required to study Red Ball operations for historical records. Their conclusions are unanimous and devastating to German military pride. General Friedrich Schultz summarizes. The Red Ball Express represents warfare we never imagined. He struggles for words. Americans created a temporary civilization. Thousands of men, thousands of vehicles, millions of tons of supplies. Pause. That existed only to feed armies, then dissolved when no longer needed. Another pause. We built permanent infrastructure over years. They created superior temporary systems in days. The most insightful analysis comes from General Heinz Guderian, father of German armored warfare. We invented Blitzkrieg, but never solved its fundamental limitation: logistics. He knows this truth now. Americans solved it through industrial excess we deemed impossible. Quiet reflection. The Red Ball Express was not a supply line. It was a flowing river of material that drowned our forces. The Red Ball cost the United States approximately $100 million in 1944. Vehicles destroyed, fuel consumed, roads damaged. French claims. German staff officers accustomed to managing scarcity find the figure incomprehensible. Yet Americans consider it cheap. The operation enabled capture of 400,000 German soldiers. Liberation of France, Belgium, and Luxembourg shortened the war by an estimated 6 months. Each day of war cost America $250 million. The Red Ball paid for itself in a single day of shortened conflict. Lieutenant General John C. H. Lee, commanding logistics for the European theater, states the calculation plainly. We wore out 5,000 trucks and 23,000 men to destroy the German army in France. He's matter of fact. In any previous war, that would be catastrophic losses. In American industrial war, it's acceptable overhead. An unexpected consequence of the Red Ball is its revolutionary impact on post-war civilian logistics. Thousands of drivers returned to America with experience operating the world's largest transportation network. These veterans found trucking companies, design interstate highways, create the modern American logistics industry. Companies like Yellow, Freight, Roadway, and Consolidated Freightways start with Red Ball veterans who applied military logistics to civilian commerce. They learned in France that volume beats efficiency. Speed beats perfection. And if you can keep trucks rolling 24 hours, you can move the world. Military historians universally recognize the Red Ball as the decisive logistics operation of the European theater. Without it, Patton's advance stops. Paris falls weeks later. German forces successfully establish winter defensive lines. The operation validated American military doctrine, emphasizing logistics over tactics. While German officers studied Clausewitz and battlefield maneuver, Americans studied Detroit assembly lines and railroad timetables. The Red Ball demonstrated that, in modern warfare, the ability to supply forces determines victory more than tactical brilliance. September 15th, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, supreme German commander in the West, receives comprehensive intelligence on the Red Ball. After studying the reports for hours, he summons his staff. "Gentlemen," he announces, "voice heavy, we face something beyond military solution." He looks at each officer. The Americans have created a supply system that makes distance irrelevant. Pause. Our strategy assumed their culminating point, where advancing forces outrun supplies. Another pause. That point doesn't exist. The words land like hammer blows. They have revolutionized warfare. And we are fighting the last war. His operations. Officer Oberst Hans Speidel suggests interdicting the Red Ball routes with remaining Luftwaffe forces. Von Rundstedt's response reveals complete understanding. With what shall we interdict? He's almost gentle. They have 6,000 trucks. If we destroy 1,000, which we cannot, they'll replace them in a week. The arithmetic is brutal. We'd need to destroy 200 trucks daily just to match their production. We don't have 200 aircraft total. Behind the statistics are human stories that reveal American character to German observers. Drivers who haven't slept for 3 days refusing relief because their trucks might not make it through. Mechanics working in freezing rain to keep convoys rolling. Teenagers lying about their age to drive trucks. Such stories multiply throughout the operation, creating mythology that demoralizes German forces. The Americans aren't soft as propaganda claimed. They drive themselves harder than Germans drive horses, but they do it voluntarily. Not from fear. This makes them more dangerous than German doctrine understood. The Red Ball becomes unintentional propaganda, more powerful than any planned operation. German soldiers can hear the convoys at night. Endless streams of motors that never stop. The sound itself becomes psychological warfare. German units report hearing ghost convoys that demoralize troops as effectively as actual logistics. The knowledge that Americans have unlimited supplies while Germans ration their last ammunition creates despair that undermines combat effectiveness. American psychological warfare units recognize the impact. They begin broadcasting truck engine sounds toward German lines when actual convoys aren't present. German units report these phantom convoys as real, demonstrating the psychological damage the Red Ball has inflicted. November 1944. With rail lines partially restored, the Red Ball is officially discontinued. but its methods revolutionized military logistics permanently. The concept of continuous, high-volume, wasteful, but effective supply becomes American military doctrine. The final innovation is the speed of dissolution. The massive operation. 23,000 men, 6,000 vehicles, hundreds of installations. Disappears in 72 hours. Troops reassigned. Vehicles redistributed. Routes returned to civilian use. Germans require months to create smaller operations, years to dissolve them. Americans build what they need, use it, discard it, build something better. When German generals surrender in May 45, many cite the Red Ball specifically as demonstrating the hopelessness of continued resistance. General von Manteuffel states at his interrogation, "When we understood your logistics capacity, we knew the war was lost." His voice is flat, empty. "You could supply armies faster than we could destroy them." Pause. The Red Ball Express was a weapon against which we had no defense. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, among Germany's most competent commanders, is asked what most surprised him about American forces. His answer comes without hesitation. Not your tanks, not your planes. He looks directly at his interrogator. Your trucks. Quiet moment. The Red Ball Express showed us that you had militarized your entire society's production capacity. He understands it now. Too late. We were fighting your factories, not just your soldiers. The final statistics of the EA Red Ball stand as testament to American industrial warfare. Total cargo delivered, 412,193 tons. Total distance covered, 122 million ton-miles. Trucks employed, nearly 6,000 daily average, 7,000 peak. Drivers involved, 23,000 total. Operating days, 82. Fuel consumed, 57 million gallons. Tires worn out, 180,000. Vehicles destroyed, over 5,000. Cost, $100 million. German divisions defeated through supply advantage, 47. Estimated war days shortened, 180. These numbers tell a story that transcends military operations. They represent the moment when warfare changed forever, when industrial capacity became more important than tactical brilliance, when logistics determined strategy rather than serving it. 1994, 50th anniversary of D-Day.